If written like a news report, what stories from the Bible were done by Florida man? Florida man drives 2,000 pigs to mass suicide by drowning. This sounds like an episode of South Park. Florida man ties 300 foxes together, straps lit torch to each. Just Samson's entire life. Most of judges, really. Florida woman accused of nailing man's head to the floor. Florida man found murdered on toilet, assistant thought he was constipated. Florida man dismembers murdered wife, mails pieces across country. For the second one I prefer to frame the assistant as Florida man. Florida man finds boss murdered on toilet, thought he was constipated. Florida man beats 1,000 men to death with donkey bone, gets regrettable haircut. Claims his mullet is source of his strength. Girlfriend cuts off his mullet when he is drunk. He responds by tearing down building. And fighting an alligator, which for some reason is on meth. When he woke in the morn. And he looked up above. He was pleased and surprised. To discover his love. But he couldn't explain. Where she'd chosen to stand. For she stood on their bed. With her shears in her hand. In the night, while he'd slept. She had shaven his hair. And he rose with a cry. And a wail of despair. For his locks were adrift. And his strength was the cost. But the world, it would pay. For the mullet he lost. Florida man tears lion apart with his bare hands after practicing on goats. Doesn't tell parents. Judges 14:6. Wow, the Bible really is something else, hey. Only Florida man could tear a lion apart. He later returns to the rotting lion carcass to discover beehive in it. Feasts on honey. Uses a story of him killing the lion and eating the honey right from lion's corpse to entertain people on his wedding day. Edit, related, Samson the Barbarian. I mean, what else are you going to do with lion honey but throw a mad party? Florida man feeds children to bears. This story always fucked me up. Man's had 40 kids mauled cause they called him bald? Sounds like something my brother-in-law would do. What, mock a bald man or sick a couple of she-bears on some obnoxious teens? Florida man kills 6'9" man using slingshot to the head. From the text it actually appears that Goliath likely had acromegaly and was disabled by it. There's a couple of lines that make it seem like he was partially blind. And if he were truly as big as the story says, he'd have severe heart problems and bad joints too. Basically the story of David and Goliath is about a relatively intelligent teenager with a sling, a weapon as accurate and deadly as a handgun, picking off a disabled guy who couldn't even properly see him. By staying back a few dozen yards he negated all of Goliath's advantages. There's a great TED talk about this, how Goliath appears to suffer from basically a form of gigantism, with symptoms being nearsightedness, etc. It's fascinating with how it completely twists the David vs Goliath story around. Basically Goliath was used as an intimidation factor because of his size and strength, and I'm sure would win his fights with brute force. So it seems like the only kind of person who could actually easily take him down was a dude with a sling. Those slings are ridiculously powerful, ridiculously accurate in the right hands, and let's be honest, shepherds had lots of time and reason to practice, and the stones used were rounded river stones which would be more accurate and hard as a mofo. One of those clacking you on the forehead at 100 miles per hour would be enough to severely injure or kill basically anyone. Florida man convinces neighbors to go into desert, gets lost for 40 years. Florida man gives 200 involuntary circumcisions, presents foreskins to father-in-law. You beat me to it, haha. My headline was Florida man in custody for attempting to purchase woman with bag of foreskins, insists price is fair by market standards. Florida man yet again gives biting criticism regarding minimum wage in the US by stealing the tips of 200 foreigners. Well, her service is hip. And the dining's divine. So he gave her a tip. But alas. It was a mine. Florida man found guilty of murder pardoned by public vote. I love democracy. I love the republic. Florida men sell brother into human trafficking and pretend he was killed by alligators. Upon further questioning, the alligator denied everything and was later cleared of all charges. Authorities revealed the gator was just ornery because he had so many teeth and couldn't locate a toothbrush. And now here's Tom with the weather. Thanks Jim, we are expecting over 999,999,999 inches of rain. Wait, what's rain? Great question, Tom. Apparently, it's supposed to be water like in the sea, but get this, falling from the sky. Sounds absurd, right? If you want more details, I guess you can say we know a guy. And now, here's Janice with sports. Florida man found washed up on beach, claims to have been living inside whale. Pinocchio's dad? Geppetto is straight out Naples. Naples, FLA. Donkey is in a stable condition after being beaten by Florida man. Florida man reports the donkey was arguing with him. Shrek. The story is of a guy named Balaam whose donkey started talking to him when he was beating it. A natural reaction to defuse the situation. Florida man sent to die with lions. Ends up befriending them. That's just wholesome. Florida man threatens to cut woman's baby in half over custody dispute. I feel like this has definitely happened before. Some abusive Florida junkie has definitely threatened his ex-wife with infant bisection. Florida man wanders into local church, begins upending tables. Florida man sells best friend for a sack of quarters, commits suicide. Florida man arrested after dumping buckets of frogs and blood onto neighbor's property. Florida man arrested after wandering neighborhoods with slate declaring new government. Police determine slate stolen from local Home Depot. Florida man arrested for peeping on neighbor in her bathroom from his rooftop. Told police, when I saw her in the bath I knew I had to marry her. The last one also sent her husband to war so he could bang her. He brought her in, got her pregnant, calls her husband home so he can sleep with her and make it seem like it's his kid, but the husband refused to sleep at home out of respect for his comrades back in the war, so David sent him to the front and told his commander to pull back without telling him. Then he married her. And then God came down hard on his ass.